both very passionate about, which is how you use art and city capital improvements to create a stronger sense of community and to really make something much greater than what those two pieces are.
I think the thing for Craig and I, this is one of our passions. We've been working together for a long time, 10, 11 years. And the thing that we've learned along the way, and it changes every time, is our attitudes about design, because we are so aware that as cities we're always investing in design, we're always making investments in infrastructure. And what we care about is that we're making the right kind of investments, not on the high level about the program, but kind of the attitude that we make those investments with. And at the heart of it is, we really want to embrace art and the principles of art to do and take the required things, the things we have to do, and find a way to make them really inspired. And I think the key to that is just doing things differently, not necessarily more expensively, not necessarily adding a lot of extra burden. And in fact, some cases, I think one of our messages, you can really kind of unclutter and unburden yourself and do things a lot more efficiently and have a lot of fun.
Well, I think Guy makes the right point that cities spend a tremendous amount of money on community improvements and capital improvements, and a lot of that stuff is the public is completely unaware of. And by embracing the principles of art and using artists on design teams and really thinking a lot about the broader kind of goals you're trying to accomplish, you change the way your community is perceived, and you change the way people relate to each other and how they appreciate what the city's doing. You create an identity for yourself in a sea of projects that are inevitable for a city of any size.
And I would give some examples, which is, again, there are things you know that you're going to be doing that you need to do, they're right to do, but it's very easy to quickly fall into a more typical approach. So for example, as we talk about art, we love art, but in the end what our passion is not just let's get more objects placed around that people will see. We actually view art as something that is a living thing and a process and a principle that can be embraced. So for example, we all do projects, for Craig and I, they're usually parks, that have a high level of public involvement. And we also know that it's both required, it is really valuable, and that it can also become sometimes uninspired and even stale. So you're going to be spending money on public outreach, and you're going to be investing in it for all the right reasons. And one of the things in working with Craig, for example, that we used to do, that we've done is, instead of spending that money to hire a facilitator to come in and host an event and record it in a more traditional way that, quite frankly, I think leaves a little folder that's going to end up on someone's desk or a file on a computer that's not going to be embraced. We took that money, we hired a group called Theater Simple, and they'd have this program called Park Bench, where they literally have this trailer with a park bench, and they would have people at our public meeting come up, sit on the bench, they do interviews, and they strung it all together with music and did a This American Life podcast. So, and it wasn't just about the project, it was first about the project, but then about
expectations for the community, what they'd like the project to achieve.
And then memories of Redmond.
And and we spent less on that than we'd spend on a traditional public involvement process. And as you can imagine, this is a project launch on a day, outdoors on a day when it's pouring rain. And we had a line of people waiting to sit on the park bench and talk to the camera and explain what they cared about in their city and what they were trying to achieve. It's extraordinary. I mean, we had over 100 people in the pouring rain in a public involvement event for a capital project. It was extraordinary. And to me, it just reinforced what Guy said, that by thinking about all the public interactions you have as a way to interject art and creativity to liven them up, we launched the master plan process for a major capital project in the city of Redmond, the Redmond Central Connector, by having a performance artist in council chambers to start the conversation. So the conversation started with 10 minutes of performance art before we began to talk about what the project was going to be like. I mean, there's extraordinary opportunities out there if you just think ahead a little bit, and it doesn't have to cost any more money. It's money that you're spending anyway.
And I think I give another example, which is we hire design teams for projects all the time. We list the people we want as part of that design team. One of the things that Craig kind of pioneered that's now standard procedure in Redmond is to include an artist on all those teams. And that really isn't adding a cost, because that artist is not creating some separate object over here that is considered a value opportunity if we want to add it. They're integral to the design team. They shape the very things that the design team is designing. So it kind of takes and elevates what you'd be doing anyways to a whole new level, and it doesn't really cost the project any money. But what it does do is it makes it far more distinctive, because I think in the end our kind of test is we don't just want to meet the requirements of what that design's trying to accomplish physically. We really want to make sure that we're also providing some sort of experience, which means it's something that's memorable, that people are going to say, hey, have you been to, fill in the name of your city. Have you been to so-and-so, and have you seen the amazing, because everyone can do that, whether it's taking an intersection and just making it an incredibly interesting intersection, even as it meets all the guidelines that it needs to meet. And I think that's true for any investment.
And I think, long term, what I think both of us have been trying to achieve is to get people to not fear art as something that is going to cause trouble or be controversial or shorten their career or whatever, and realize that it's a thing that can revitalize and invigorate what is often a pretty dry process in government. I mean, it's pretty hard in the modern world to get 100 people to show up or to get a full room to talk about a design project when they have 1,000 other things to do with their lives. But if you use art and you take advantage of the opportunities for creativity, you can change people's attitude about a public process. And the point Guy just made about, you can include art in any capital project you do by writing it in the request for proposal that there's a requirement to have an artist, and it's all within the scope of the work. And I don't think it increases the project cost at all. It just changes the nature of the design team and changes the kind of work that's likely going to result.
And I would add also another example is that I think in a world of our projects, we're always thinking about perpetuity. We're thinking about something that's got to last for 30 years, how it's going to hold up. There's all these thoughts and considerations. I think when we think a little more creatively about things, we can add time into the fold, which is not everything that we do to shape community needs to be permanent. So you can do things that are short-term, near-term, even ephemeral. You can create events and experiences and places that could be there for a few hours, a week, over a summer season that can shape a community. And the cool thing about that is, for example, if you have a big project you want to achieve, but you don't have the full capital budget to do that, you can do a couple of really inexpensive investments with the resources you have at hand and the city staff you have at hand to start to do some really small interventions to claim a space, not just physically where it exists in your city, but even to kind of claim it in people's psyche. Because once an idea starts to live in people's heads, even if it's not complete, it's just going to increase the opportunity to end up pursuing that funding and to realize the project and make it real.
And I think it's important for cities to not think of this always as an additional cost or an additional challenge that they have to bear. Cities, as every elected official and administrator knows, are spending a tremendous amount of money every day on the public's business. And I think what we're suggesting is that by changing the way you approach the public's business, you alter the public's perception of your work, and you increase public engagement, you increase people's sense of connectedness, you build a sense of community where maybe there isn't one now, you begin to distinguish yourself from other communities around you. And I think if all those things are true to the essence of your community and what you're trying to achieve, then it's always going to be a net benefit. It's always going to benefit the project, and it's going to benefit your community.
And beyond the community being a group of the people you serve, it's also going to be more fun for you, and it's more rewarding. I mean, all the staff that have been able to be part of our projects, I think, are better for it, have a more increased ownership in these projects, and have in the end had a lot more fun.
I think that's absolutely true. Government work is a lot of times a little dry, and this is a way to add a lot of energy and a lot of interest.